The doctrine of filial piety. Chapter 1. The scope and meaning of the treatise. The ancient kings had a perfect virtue and all-embracing rule of conduct, through which they were in accord with all under heaven. By the practice of it, the people were brought to live in peace and harmony, and there was no ill will between superiors and inferiors. Filial piety is the root of all virtue, and the stem out of which grows all moral teaching. Our bodies, through every hair and bit of skin, are received by us from our parents, and we must not presume to injure or wound them. This is the beginning of filial piety. When we have established our character by the practice of the filial course, so as to make our name famous in future ages, and thereby glorify our parents, this is the end of filial piety. It commences with the service of parents. It proceeds to the service of the ruler. It is completed by the establishment of character. Chapter 2. The King. He who loves his parents does not dare to hate other people, and he who honors his parents does not dare to despise others. Completely fulfill his duty of loving and honoring his parents. Extend the virtue education to all people. Act as a role model for the rest of the world. This is the filial piety of the king. Chapter 3. The Overlords of the States. Above others, and yet free from pride, they dwell on high without peril. Adhering to economy and carefully observant of the rules and laws, they are full without overflowing. To dwell on high without peril is the way long to preserve nobility. To be full without overflowing is the way long to preserve riches. When they are able to preserve their nobility and wealth, they perpetuate the security of their state and bring harmony to the people. This is the filial piety of the overlords of the states. Chapter 4. Filial piety in high ministers and great officers. Thus none of their words being contrary to those sanctions, and none of their actions contrary to the right way, from their mouths there comes no exceptionable speech, and in their conduct there are found no exceptionable actions. So even if their words were to pervade the entire earth, no errors would be found in them. Even if their actions were to fill the entire earth, nothing contemptible would be found in them. Chapter 5. Filial piety in inferior officers. Therefore, when they serve their ruler with filial piety, they are loyal. when they serve their superiors with reverence, they are obedient. Not failing in this loyalty and obedience in serving those above them, they are then able to preserve their emoluments and positions, and to maintain their sacrifices. This is the filial piety of inferior officers. Chapter 6. Filial piety in the common people. They follow the course of heaven in the revolving seasons. They distinguish the advantages afforded by different soils. They are careful of their conduct and economical in their expenditure in order to nourish their parents. This is the filial piety of the common people. Filial piety, the duty of every person from the king to the commoner, is the supreme and eternal principle of life and morality. There has never been anyone who is willing to fulfill this duty, yet fails to do so. Chapter 7. Filial piety in relation to the three powers. Filial piety is the constant method of heaven, the righteousness of earth, and the practical duty of man. The ancient kings set the moral standard and acted as role models by loving everyone without discrimination. So the people did not dare to forsake or neglect their parents. They explained to the people the truths about virtue and righteousness, and so people put them into practice. They were most respectful and courteous to the people, so there were no rivalry or competition among them. They guided the people with moral precepts and with the help of the proprieties and arts, so people lived in peace and harmony. They demonstrated to people behaviors that are pleasant or detestable, so people understood what should be prohibited. Chapter 8. Governance by filial piety. When the ancient kings, in their great wisdom, governed the country by filial piety, they did not dare to look down upon even the officials of the small states, let alone the aristocrats, the dukes, marquises, earls, viscounts, and barons of the larger states. That was why the state overlords were willing and glad to assist the king in serving his ancestors and perpetuating his dynasty. The rulers of states did not dare to slight wifeless men and widows. How much less would they slight their officers and the people? Thus it was that they got all their people with joyful hearts to assist them in serving the rulers, their predecessors. The heads of clans did not dare to slight their servants and concubines. How much less would they slight their wives and sons? Thus it was that they got their men with joyful hearts to assist them in the service of their parents. Chapter 9. Governance of the Sages. Of all creatures with different natures, produced by heaven and earth, man is the noblest. Of all the actions of man, there is none greater than filial piety. Out of the feeling of reverence for their parents, the sages taught the duty of respect for others, out of the feeling of affection for parents. They impart the teaching of love for others. Thus, the teachings of the sages were accomplished without being too regimental, and their government was efficient without being overly stringent. He who loves other people, but loves not his parents, is defying virtue. He who honors other people, but honors not his parents, is defying proprieties. He speaks, having thought whether the words should be spoken. He acts, having thought whether his actions are sure to give pleasure. His virtue and righteousness are such as will be honored. What he initiates and does is fit to be imitated. His deportment is worthy of contemplation. His movements in advancing or retiring are all according to the proper rule. In this way does he present himself to the people. The people who both revere and love him imitate and become like him. Thus he is able to make his teaching of virtue successful, and his government and orders to be carried into effect. Chapter 10. An orderly description of the acts of filial piety. In his general conduct to them, he manifests the utmost reverence. In his nourishing of them, his endeavor is to give them the utmost pleasure. When they are ill, he feels the greatest anxiety. In mourning for them, dead, he exhibits every demonstration of grief. In sacrificing to them, he displays the utmost solemnity. When a son is complete in these 5 things, he may be pronounced able to serve his parents. He who thus serves his parents in a high situation will be free from pride. In a low situation will be free from insubordination, and among his equals will not be quarrelsome. In a high situation, pride leads to ruin. In a low situation, insubordination leads to punishment. Among equals, quarrelsomeness leads to the wielding of weapons. If those 3 things be not put away, though a son every day contributes beef, mutton, and pork to nourish his parents, he is not filial. Chapter 11. Filial piety in relation to the 5 punishments. Those who threaten the lords have no regard for their superiors. Those who vilify the sages have no regard for the law. And those who oppose filial piety have no regard for their parents. These are the root causes of anarchy. Chapter 12. Amplification of the all-embracing rule of conduct. For teaching the people to be affectionate and loving, there is nothing better than filial piety. For teaching them the observance of propriety and submissiveness, there is nothing better than fraternal duty. For changing their manners and altering their customs, there is nothing better than music. For securing the repose of superiors and the good order of the people, there is nothing better than the rules of propriety. The rules of propriety are simply the development of the principle of reverence. Chapter 13. Amplification of the perfect virtue in Chapter 1. The teaching of filial piety by the superior man does not require that he should go to family after family and daily see the members of each. His teaching of filial piety is a tribute of reverence to all the fathers under heaven. His teaching of fraternal submission is a tribute of reverence to all the elder brothers under heaven. His teaching of the duty of a subject is a tribute of reverence to all the rulers under heaven. Chapter 14. Amplification of making our name famous in Chapter 1. The filial piety with which the superior man serves his parents may be transferred as loyalty to the ruler. The fraternal duty with which he serves his elder brother may be transferred as submissive deference to elders. His regulation of his family may be transferred as good government in any official position. Therefore, when his conduct is thus successful in his inner private circle, his name will be established and transmitted to future generations. Chapter 15. Filial piety in relation to reproof and remonstrance. And the father who had a son that would remonstrate with him would not sink into the gulf of unrighteous deeds. Therefore, when a case of unrighteous conduct is concerned, a son must by no means keep from remonstrating with his father, nor a minister from remonstrating with his ruler. Chapter 16. The influence of filial piety and the response to it. Even the king has others to whom he must give honor, namely his parents, and those to whom he must give precedence, namely his elder brothers. When he offers sacrifices to his ancestors, he gives them the highest reverence to show that he has not neglected his parents. He cultivates his moral character and guards his conduct, lest he might disgrace his royal ancestors. Perfect filial piety and fraternal duty reach to and move the spiritual intelligences and diffuse their light on all within the four seas. They penetrate everywhere. Chapter 17. The service of the ruler. The superior man serves his ruler in such a way that, when at court in his presence, his thought is how to discharge his loyal duty to the utmost, and when he retires from it, his thought is how to amend his errors. He carries out with deference the measures springing from his excellent qualities, and rectifies him only to save him from what are evil. Hence, as the superior and inferior, they are able to have affection for each other. Chapter 18. Filial Piety in Mourning for Parents. The services of love and reverence to parents when alive, and those of grief and sorrow to them when dead. These completely discharge the fundamental duty of living men. The righteous claims of life and death are all satisfied, and the filial son's service of his parents is completed.